Hi, everybody. It's Karen Anderson here with Aortic Hope, and we are so excited to bring to you our book reading event for the month of June. And we have with us to kick off this event for this month, we have a community member. She is a survivor, and now she is a poet, an official poet, who wrote the the book that we're going to talk about for the first one of this month. This is Maria Herrera. Welcome. Thank you so much. I'm giving you the round of applause.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for
So excited.
inviting me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. I want to start off tonight because you are a survivor, and just to let people know that are with us before we even get started, it is really important if you're with us to please click like and click
Mm.
the subscribe button and click that little bell so that you are notified every time that we have another event that you can join. So do that for me. And if you have any questions or comments, or you would like to chat with us tonight, just go ahead and put that comment in the comment section and we will be reading them off. We'll be talking about them. In addition, if you are watching this not live and it's later, please feel free to leave a comment because we do check those and we will write back to you. So let's get started with the first stuff I want to talk about, which is all about you and all about your story. So if you want to just go ahead and take us through a little bit about what brought you to the aortic community to begin with.
Okay. Well, I I'm an aortic dissection survivor, as you say, and I had two episodes already, and my first one happened in 2009. It just came out of nowhere. I was always a healthy person. I was not overweight. I was eating right. I was working out. I was doing everything that you are told to do to stay healthy. And I was training for to run a marathon. I was 53 years old at the time, and I wanted to for my 50th birthday. My goal was to run a marathon. I just wanted to run one marathon. And I started training, and I trained for a couple of years, and then I made it. The first year I made it to 20 miles, but I had a new job, and then I decided not to pursue it, not to finish it, because I was under a lot of stress, and I felt that it was too stressful. So the second year I was emotionally ready, physically ready, and I made it to 20 miles. I did 20 miles. The marathon was going to be on October 11, 2009, and then on August 16 of 2009, I went for a run. I supposed to do 10 miles that day. And I have previously, the week before, I did 20 miles. So my schedule told me to do long miles one weekend and then half of that the following weekend. So that day was to do 10 miles. So I went and then I started running and I was feeling great. I mean, better than ever. And I kept running and then I got to the fourth mile and then I felt something in my jaw, the right side. And then I remember I put my hand to it and then I said to myself, well, it was probably a tooth or maybe the way I slept the night before. So I kept running since I was feeling so good. And then half a mile later, I felt something on my neck. It was like a pulsation right in the Adam's apple. And then my radiating pain through the shoulder, to the right shoulder. And I still kept running. And then in the back of my mind, I kept thinking about how I have read about women, heart attacks for women, and those were the symptoms. So then I decided to call my fiance at the time. And I called him and I told him what I was feeling. And then he said, stop running and then walk towards the road because I was running at a bike trail far away from the road. So I started walking towards him. He came and picked me up. took me to the urgent care because I did not want to go to the hospital because I was feeling great. I mean, that day I was feeling like, I remember thinking about Michael Jordan and Wonder Woman. That's how good I was feeling. I was flying that day, and I didn't want my training to stop. I mean, the marathon was 6 weeks away, and I was doing so good. So he took me to the clinic, and then they did a EKG. Nothing showed. But they didn't want me to come home. They sent me to the hospital, and the ambulance. They called the ambulance. They didn't allow my fiance to take me, so they called the ambulance. So the ambulance came, and then they took me. They gave me aspirin, baby aspirin, nitron. Is it nitron that they gave you? Nitron, and then but they were so impressed with my heart rate, and I had no symptoms. They keep looking for a heart attack. So they took me to the hospital. They did testing. They did X-rays. They did an EKG, and everything was just perfect. And mainly everybody, the doctors and nurses, were so impressed with my heart rate because they say that I had the heart rate of an athlete. And so they keep telling me, like, there's no way that you can have a heart problem with all this running that you're doing, and then as healthy as you are, because I look healthy, and I was healthy. I mean, the way people were seeing me, I was a healthy person, so it was impossible to conceive that I had a heart problem. So they kept me there. On Sunday, that was a Sunday, so they kept me there until the next day. They did a stress test. I passed that. They sent me home, and then they said that it was stress or a acid reflux. That was a diagnosis. So since they released me, I knew that I have to run the marathon, so I kept training. And the next day I didn't go to work, so I didn't feel that good really, because for a long time I've been feeling the pressure in my chest, what they call the elephant sitting on your chest. And so I kept training, and then even though I didn't feel good, I kept telling myself, it's not my heart, it's not the heart, it's not the heart. So I kept pushing and pushing and pushing myself. So that that was Tuesday, I didn't go to work. Then Wednesday I went to work, and I wasn't feeling well. And even somebody told me that I didn't look good at work, and she gave me some crackers or something. I looked pale, so she thought maybe I wasn't eating right, and knowing that I was in the hospital. So I came home. Then on Thursday, I went back to training to 5 miles I did that day. And then I was leaning, I was doing my stretching after I finished my extensive workout. And then I lean on, the yoga ball. And then I lean all the way down to stretch my whole body. And then I felt something like, it was like a zipper. And I even heard something like all the way to my leg. And then I felt like I was going to pass out. I saw like little light splashing everywhere. I sat down, and I think I looked pale because somebody asked me, like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm okay. I didn't want to say anything because by now all the doctors and everybody were making me feel like I was crazy. I didn't want to say anything to my family. So I drove myself like that home without even being able to see that well. I came home, I called work, and I lay down. And I woke up with a terrible pain. And I was reading the book, and it says on the right side, but I'm not really sure. I mean, but it's obviously like that because I wrote that right after it happened. Terrible pain. And then I had an appointment with my doctor the next Friday, and I even called to see if she would see me and sooner because I wasn't feeling well. She said, no, I don't have time. So my fiance called, and then I told him what was going on, and then he took me to the other hospital. So the other hospital repeated the same test. It was just to the ER, so they did again X-rays, and then they said that it was my kidneys, that my water pill, I was taking a water pill, I guess. I don't even remember taking it for the blood pressure. So they said not to take it any longer. They gave me Motrin for pain, sent me home again, even though by then I was in terrible pain. So I came home, tried to sleep. I didn't get any sleep the night before because of the pain. The pain kept just getting worse and worse and worse. So, but nevertheless, I waited all day until Friday, 4 o'clock, at my appointment to see my doctor. And the moment that she saw me, I guess she saw how much pain I was in. She sent me to the hospital to get an emergency CT scan because she thought it was kidney stones. So then I got there, and they still made me drink a horrible drink, pink drink, because they kept thinking that it was the kidney stones. By then I was shaking and oh, it was just horrible. I mean, I was shaking, I was vomiting, I just couldn't keep walking and walking because the pain was so strong. Well, they put me finally in the CT scan. Immediately they got me out, and then they told me your doctor is on the phone. So then she told me that I had a ruptured aorta and I needed emergency surgery, and I needed to. There was no doctor in Aurora. I live in Aurora, close to Aurora, to do that type of surgery because not any doctor can do that type of surgery. So they had to find a doctor. They immediately put me in bed, and they started the pain medication and not letting me move. And the emergency doctor kept coming and talking to me, and then he told me that how serious it was, and he told me that John Reeder died of it, and I knew of him because of Three's company. And then so waited and waited for the doctor for them to find the doctor. It was a weekend, so finally they found one, but it was all the way in Chicago, Northwestern Hospital. So they were gonna take me by helicopter then. But something happened. I don't know, because by then I was really, really like kind of with the medication, kind of drowsy. So my brother told me that it was because they don't have a landing on the weekends since 9/11. The helicopters don't land at night in the hospital. So they sent the ambulance. It took me, by the time I got there, they had everything ready for me. And the last thing that I remember from there, it was the prayer, because I wanted a priest, but they didn't have a priest available. So somebody praying with my family, and that's the last thing that I remember. And then that was on Friday night, and then I don't remember anything else until the next Sunday around 2 o'clock. I remember looking at the clock on the wall, and then my mother sitting by me, rubbing my hand, and was still waking up and kind of waking up and seeing tubes everywhere and everybody, my hands like swollen, and I couldn't talk, and I just keep opening my eyes on and off, on and off. And so since then, I mean, then I started remembering more, and I was there. I don't remember really how long I was there in that department, and then eventually they transferred me to the regular floor, and then started waking up, and then coming home. Oh my God, that was like so horrible. Seeing myself, I couldn't even see myself. I mean, I haven't seen myself in the mirror when I was in the hospital. When I saw myself, I had long hair, and my daughter had braided my hair because I had to keep it out of my face. And I couldn't sleep because the braids were bothering the pillow. And so I untied my hair, and then I saw my face in the mirror. I went to the bathroom, and my hair was like that. And then my face, and then bruises, and oh gosh. So
And we're
that's
going
what
to talk about that. We're going to talk about those specifics on what you felt, but please continue.
So then after that, it was just, the dealing with that and crying. I did so much crying. Like I couldn't, all I did was cry and cry and cry, and thinking that it was a punishment from God because I got divorced, because I'm Catholic. So Catholic people always feel that everything is a punishment. So I kept telling my daughter, it's a punishment from God. And she said, no, Mom, it's not a punishment. But it was just such a drastic change, because one day I was flying, and one day I was Wonder Woman, and then the next day I was barely walking, like learning to walk and having people to walk me outside, and I felt so vulnerable. I felt like if somebody blew at me, I was gonna fall. And it took a long time, and then I didn't know anything. I didn't want to know at that point. I did not want to know anything about what happened to me. And I remember my fiance asked the doctor one of the time that he came to my room, "What did you do, doctor?" And then he made a drawing on the board. And I could not see that drawing. It was so painful for me to see the drawing. He drew the ascending aorta that he repaired, the piece that he repaired, and that stuck in my mind. And of course, I didn't understand what it was, but I just didn't want to see it. I didn't want to know at that point.
And
And
was
then
that the time? Was that the time? Because I know back then in 2009, Facebook was just starting, so there really wasn't any support groups that you could turn to. So was it then, or was it after your second situation that you discovered the group that was in Europe?
yeah, it was my fiance. After I got to the point, after I started feeling better, and then I wanted to know, to understand what happened to me. And because it was also very scary not knowing what they did to me, because I was, what if I move and then something is going to rupture and I'm going to die? And I was so afraid of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he told me, why don't you look online? And then, see, I didn't even have a Facebook account at the time. Facebook was kind of new. So he helped me, and then I found that group in England, and I was the fourth member. And they immediately like embraced me, and it helped me so much to find them, and then educated me, and I copy and paste the description the doctor gave me to them, and then they explained it to me what it was, and it was just that from them on I started learning a little bit, and then I eventually got to the point that I was able to see my surgery on YouTube, because I wanted to see exactly how they did it, because I was so afraid to move. And I thought, like, how can they do that? Because I knew it was a graft, it was a dacron,
Mm-hmm.
and how can they sew it together? Because one thing that I did in one of my life experiences, I know how to sew. So I was a tailor, men's tailor. So when I saw the YouTube and I saw how they did it, and I really understood it, because when you work in a men's suit, because the men's shoulders have a lot of power, a lot of strength. So you need to really reinforce those seams to tie the sleeve to the shoulder, to the back.
Mm-hmm.
So kinds of stuff that you had to attach there. And then I saw that's how they did it. And I was like, I feel better after that. I feel like, wow, it's just like attaching the sleeve to
It
the
really
man's
is.
suit.
Right.
And that
That's
helped me understand.
great analogy.
So, but I still have a lot of PTSD over it. And I mean, even though it's been since 2009, and just talking about it, I mean, right now I'm feeling a little, emotional. And after I knew that I was gonna do this, I went back and I read the book, some pieces of my book, some of the poetry, and I cried. I mean, I cried with my own poetry. So then I decided to. I have always have a tendency to write poetry, even when I was young, but I never really. It seems like that event really worked that on me. So it was like the poetry started flowing more, and then it was so healing to write what I was feeling. It
Mm-hmm.
was healing, and to analyze my own emotions, my feelings, and write them down. And then so I started addressing one feeling at a time, and writing it down and writing it down, and then writing the process of what I was feeling.
Why
And
don't you, can you show everybody the book and give everybody the name real quick of your book?
okay, can you see?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the book, and it's called Dissected, and it's healing with poetry my journey of 2 aortic dissection surgeries. And well, what else do you want me to
Well,
talk?
first, let me tell you, I appreciate so much you sharing your story. And I was sitting here still taking notes, even though I read the book. But when you talk about just being scared to move and the ticking time bomb, I think that I would bet that every single person who has a dissection, and maybe even some people who have had surgery for their aneurysms, feel the same thing, because we're not all tailors. So for us,
Mhm.
visually trying to think about this graft, and mind you, the aorta is 3 layers. And from what I've heard from surgeons, when they do surgery, it feels like they're operating on wet tissue paper. So we're not talking anything that that necessarily feels strong, but it is strong. But now you have to attach something to something that they've cut out, and it just boggles the mind. And I think all of us have felt, what happens if I sneeze? What happens if I laugh? What happens if I choke or I have to cough? Like, am I going to
Yeah.
blow? Right? Because
Yeah.
all you were doing was running. Like, why am I not going to just blow? So I think you sharing your story verbally
Mhm.
here, and when you wrote it down, because the book is very interesting. It's, first of all, it's very validating and will be very validating for so many people. So just know that. And we're so appreciative. One of the things I wanted to ask, because I can't remember if it was addressed in the book, and then we're going to dive into the book, was there a family history that you were aware of?
No, there's no family history that I'm aware of it, and that's why the doctors are very surprised. And then because I never been overweight, I never use drugs, I never smoke, I never drink. I mean, that is really like they were shocked that it happened to me, and I there's no history, so they were getting ready to do some testing, but then I remember that I had an accident, a car crash. Somebody hit me in Colorado, in Denver. My son was in college in Denver, and then somebody hit me, and it was like a T-bone
Mm,
accident. I had the wheel stump in my chest, and so
wow.
the doctor thinks that that caused the aorta, maybe like the inner layer, like a rupture in the
Sure.
inner layer, and then they couldn't see it, and then it just got bigger and bigger. And then me training with the marathon, I mean, they keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and then eventually just
That's
dissected
amazing.
all the way to the iliac. And then, of course, I have the B dissection too.
Right, right. Which I know you do talk about. I guess it was right around 2012. You go into details about that. Was handled a little bit differently than your
Yeah,
emergency situation.
yeah, it was 2017,
Oh,
5 years
17,
ago.
sorry.
That.
Right. Well, I
Yeah.
want to say something about your book. What I found so interesting about it, because I just assumed I'd be opening a book of poems. And to be very honest with you, as I said to you before we went live, I'm more of, if I have to put in categories, I'm like a Dr. Seuss poetry person. I need things to rhyme, and things have to make sense and have order in order for me to understand it. And so I was just expecting I was going to read nothing but poems that were just, without pace or rhythm. But when I opened it and we started right away with your story, I was already engrossed. And then what you did is you took your event and it was your own therapeutic outlet, and you started translating your event into poetry. So it is in 3 separate parts. And it blew my mind away, because yes, you have poems that rhyme, and I don't know what that's called, versus ones that don't. But
Yeah.
when I found, I think I told you that when I was done, I now understand poems that don't rhyme. And it took my own personal pace down, and I reread them and I thought about them. And I have to say, I am so unbelievably impressed with your ability to say things that I know I have felt inside of myself in such a simplistic way, and yet in such, I don't want to say intellectual, but just such a stimulating way to read it, that I like felt heard. And we had never really talked like this is our first real big in-depth
Yeah.
conversation. But I
Yeah.
laid there and I was like, oh my gosh, some stranger out there hears me, hears my inner thoughts. So I want to start off with, you had made reference, and you started to here, about, and I'm not going to go through everything for all of the viewers. I'm not going to go over everything in this book because I want you to find your own parts that resonate with you. I only have like 13 little things that resonated with me. I stopped, I cut off myself. Frankenstein. What
Mhm.
I know there has to be other people out there that looked
Mhm.
at themselves and said, oh, what has happened to me? You know, nobody's going to love me. I'm ugly. I'm hideous. I'm scared of myself. What, you know, as you're hunched over because you can't have proper posture because, you know,
Yeah.
so tell everyone a little bit more about where did you come up with that and how long did you end up feeling like Frankenstein, like this monster?
Well, I that happened like maybe the day that I got home from the hospital, and like I said, I untied my hair, and then looking for the first time in the mirror closely, and then it's the first time that I look. I don't know anybody else, but my scar looked like a snake in the middle of my chest. And then, of course, you have all the little scars, additional scars that they use for the draining bags that they put on you. So I look and then bruises. So I look in the mirror and then I saw my face and it was pale and it was bluish. I mean, it was really white. And I mean, I look like a monster, I have just like I was dead, like I came
Mhm.
back from the dead. And that was so shocking for me, so painful to see myself like that. And immediately, Frankenstein, I mean, who was Frankenstein? She was a monster.
Mhm.
And then I thought, like, well, I don't know if he had a girlfriend, but I mean, I'm not a man, so I would be his girlfriend. This is how his girlfriend would look.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just like I truly, truly looked like I was dead. I just came back from out of a casket.
Yeah.
And then seeing my hands, all the bruises, my whole body bruised, and the scar and the hair and the face. And so that's where the Frankenstein, and it took, I cannot, I took a while. I mean, it took a while that I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. And little by little, of course, I started getting my color back, but it took a few weeks.
Right.
And then of course the swollen, because I was swollen. I was really swollen. I think I had like 30 pounds more.
The
Uh, the
fluid, all of
the
the
fluid
fluid.
that they pump on me, yeah, like 30 pounds. So my body started coming back to normal. So then I started feeling a little more normal, but of course still wasn't normal because the scar really bothered me. And I remember the nurse came, because there was a nurse came to see me. And
Mhm.
she told me, like, that scar, she said, I know that scar, you think that it's never going to go away. But she said, believe me, one day it's going to be a line, just a small line. And when she said that, it was like so healing for me, that it was just to imagine that one day I would be normal again. I mean, at least close to normal, because I knew that my life would never be the same after that.
Well, I just want to say that when I read that, I literally that was one of those moments when I thought like I never told anybody that I felt that way about myself. I kept that was part of my living in my own personal hell before I advanced to purgatory and then moved upwards and onwards. So that got me. I was drawn in right there. I was like, okay, what else does she know about me? We've never met. And so the next one was your poem Why Me? And I
Mm,
actually quoted part of it. And what I loved is when you said, my ego turned the unknown into knowledge and my negativity went into recession. Like, that's just brilliant. It's just
yeah.
so good. My ego turned the unknown into knowledge. And then my negativity went into recession. And there's so many moments in this book where I read it and I think, God, I just want to start posting all these quotes. I want to use them on our morning quotes because that's what everybody at the point of everybody says why me. Every
Mm,
single one of us say why me. And when you can turn that why me and don't turn it into why not me because I'm so strong, because that's a bunch of
mm, yeah.
malarkey. But turn that desire and drive to wonder why me into something powerful and seek out the knowledge, I think that begins a turning point.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you're doing, what have you done? I mean, look what you're doing, helping people, turning your knowledge into helping others and turning into, it's a healing, it's your healing. When you finally feel like you are maybe not fully healed, but you're healing because all that knowledge you see, you find a way to use it. And, the reason I use my ego in a lot of my poetry, because one of the reasons is because, of course, I'm a social worker, so it's all about the ego and so, but yeah, that's really like, I think eventually it seems impossible, that we're gonna get to that point, but eventually we get to that point. But it doesn't mean that we're gonna be at that point forever, because it's like an on and off thing, because there's another crisis, and then there we go again to, the anxieties and the fears and then we go back to the same place.
Mm-hmm. Another, well, I loved Tears because it was the type of poem that resonated with me, but the poem Misdiagnosed. I loved when you said, and I quote, "The voice of one's body, if connected within the silence of the world's noises, becomes strong." And I read that many, many times, and it's, to me, I read that and I think there's more moments where I should just sit for a minute and my own voice will become more powerful. And I use that with the misdiagnosed as a way to say we are our own best advocates. We know what we feel for ourselves. And if you know that you have a condition, then you need to bust down the doors, because if you take a minute and pause and but what you're hearing is contradictory, then your voice becomes stronger.
Yes, and listening to our bodies is very important. Like you said, stopping and listening. And nobody knows your body more than you do. But it is difficult. I mean, even now when I go to the hospital, if I have an ER event, I mean, even if it's not related, but I immediately think it's related, and then I'm scared and I'm anxious, and the doctors don't understand that, and then they think like you're crazy. And I mean, so many times they made me feel like that, like, I'm crazy, like I'm okay, especially after they do CT scan and then nothing shows. That it all shows, the word for us is, what is the word they use in the CT scan when everything is okay, that they don't, nothing to worry about. They don't say okay, it says like, it's just, gosh, I can't believe I forgot the word.
I can't think. I know what you're saying, but I know that they just basically say there's no incidental findings. So everything is negative or what have you.
Nothing that it will lead us to do anything else at the moment.
Right.
So in the doctors, the moment they see that, and then like you still, like in my own mind, I'm still trying, my own body's trying to figure out what else is going on, what else. And I'm feeling that those anxieties that I felt before and the fears, that I'm gonna have to go through that again. So, but doctors don't understand that, and doctors and nurses, especially in the ER, they can be so insensitive in the ER.
They can. So
like you said, right?
Right. Before I go on to part 2, I want to ask you, do you have a favorite poem of part 1 that you'd like to read? Or if there's a favorite in the book, period, we can get to that when we get to that section.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean, let's see, I need my glasses for the book. The first one that I wrote, that is about my mother. My mother actually died in 5 years, like a few months after I had my second surgery. So the one about my mother is very, very memory, because that was the first memory that I had from my first surgery. Waking up and then feeling her, and I have all these tubes everywhere, and then somehow she found a spot in my hand too, and she was rubbing my hand and then saying like, the saint of your name is gonna heal you, because she named me after the Holy Trinity. So she keeps just repeating that, and that's my first memory after coming back from my
That's so wonderful.
first surgery. So It always makes me emotional because she's no longer here. And I never even
Yeah.
told her what she did to me, that's what her Tash did to me.
But she's a mom, so she already knew.
That's what my daughter said. Yeah.
That's true. Well, it's up to you. If you would like to read it, we'd love to hear it. Otherwise, I do have quite a few here on my list that if you want to read those, it's up to you.
Okay. Well, I mean, go ahead and then,
Okay. So when we got into part two, what it reminded me of part two of your book was that you have your master's in social work, you also have a PhD, and yet you still openly admit to having anxiety over what we call pings and pangs, the feelings that we get in our body, and it could very well just be gas and you feel it and you're like, oh, I have to stop and do a systems check.
yeah.
And then by the time you're done, the gas is gone and you feel fine. But what I like that you said was, quote, I do not allow my condition to define me. Instead, I embrace every day as a gift and look forward to completing my mission of leaving the world a little bit better than I found it. And I thought, what a great way for us to get into part two. I was like, oh, now it's getting really, really good again. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, this is really wonderful because I feel that the book, because it's all of your emotions, and because emotions go up and down, you do this as the reader with the book. So there's a lot of moments of up and there's a lot of moments of I feel the trepidation, I feel the fear, and then I feel the accomplishment and I feel the growth. So interesting.
Yeah, it's always the ups and downs, and having a social work. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have a master's degree in social work. I have a doctorate degree in social work, and that doesn't prevent my emotions.
Mhm.
And one thing is that we should not fight our emotions. We need to. This is what I learned in social work. With my clients and everybody, that if you don't embrace your emotions, then you're fighting them, and then it's not gonna help you. So we need to stop and embrace what we feel and cry and do whatever we need to do. Sometimes I have a bad day and then I take time. I mean, I can take 24 hours just for crying. And then the next day I just allow myself to break down because I'm a human being. It doesn't matter all the degrees that I have. I'm a human being, and that is the most important. And know my body better than anybody else. And one doctor told me one time, your body is your responsibility, and really, like, only you know your body, and only you have to take care of yourself because nobody else will. And I always remember that, and so I try to. The first thing is to embrace my emotions but I'm constantly analyzing myself. Like you say, the radar, I feel something different, and then the radar goes through my whole body. And sometimes it passes, and sometimes it does, but it's just like an on and off, just like in the book, the emotions on and off, up and down, like it is our life, from
It
now
is.
on.
It really does mirror it. In your poem called A Few More Steps,
Mm.
I'm going to quote again, it takes a time of vulnerability to acknowledge our own humanity, a broken body, a brush with death, an absolute antidote for vanity. And I thought that was, I mean, that's so true. And when I walked away reading that, I just thought, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having that moment of vulnerability. And it is an antidote for vanity. It's a humbling experience, and the appreciation level for anything outside of yourself goes up exponentially, and the self-respect goes up simultaneously. It's amazing.
And it's also as women, we have this vanity thing going because society tells us that we have to look beautiful. So what happens, and that's also where the Frankenstein came from, because society tells us that we have to be beautiful. So what happens when you're not beautiful? And I was engaged at the time, and for a while, I remember thinking like, he's probably not gonna want to marry me anymore because I have a scar and everything. And then I said to myself, well, if he doesn't, then fine, because my job right now is to heal myself. And I was ready to take that, accept it, that I wasn't the same, and then embrace who I am now. But it's just, up and down. I mean, sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes, even now, sometimes I feel
Hmm.
like. But it gets better every time. We all heal, and until the next crisis. That's what I always say. Until the next crisis.
Well, and it's funny because you wrote a poem to my scar, which I thought
Oh,
was brilliant. And you said, after the struggle comes acceptance. You and I are one, no longer two. Have you noticed every day as a pair, together we fade, but stronger than a married couple, for each other we can no longer evade. And that was just, I mean, it's so easy to tell people it's just a scar. We're just a housing unit. It's like whatever. Or people will say your scars are your battle wounds and look what you've survived. Or for people who have had children, your stretch marks, they're just an indicator that you've had a baby or you've created a human. But what you wrote here, after the struggle comes acceptance, and you and I are one, no longer two. Have you noticed every day as a pair, together we fade, which is incredible, but stronger than a married couple, for each other we can no longer evade. Oh my God, it's so good, Maria. It's just so good.
you see, because it's fading, the scar is fading, but then I'm also getting older. I'm also fading, and that's what I was thinking. And then also, like, I've been married twice and divorced twice. So obviously, my scar will be with me forever.
Hmm.
Unlike my marriages,
That's right.
we get never. That's what we say when we get married, like forever. Or forever to get together until that falls apart. So your scar, I mean, you're taking this scar all the way to the casket.
You are going to take it all the way. Now, part three, I think I told you, reminded me of like an EKG. It was like boom, 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 poem, poem, poem. And it was so many emotions that go into part three. So I didn't quote too much from there, but I'll say what you said in the end. You had said, and I'm going to quote what you said, and then we'll talk about it. All the poems in this book reflect the ups and downs of my state of mind along the way. Living with the limits of an aortic dissection condition is a difficult task, undeniably. However, I do not allow it to define me. I have realized that there's a lot of life in me, and I must intentionally enjoy every moment of it. I want you to enjoy your life and do not live with fear. I'm going to butcher your doctor's name. Malasri
Malaysia, yes.
told me once, I remind myself of his words every time I sense fear ahead, which is often. Thus, every one of these poems is my fight to live a fearless life, at the same time, take care of myself psychologically and physically. And I think after going through all of the emotions with you as I was reading it, after reading that, I just felt, yeah, this is peace. This is complete. And and I, I will say that I've had many flashbacks since reading your book of when I first saw myself in my mother's mirror at her house. And I was like shocked. Didn't see myself at all in the hospital. I didn't even know there was a bathroom in my room. So I never even made it into there. And I remember the same thing, just looking, but I saw myself from outside of myself. I felt like you had said you were the Walking Dead. I felt like I was a ghost and people didn't see me anymore. They just were seeing their own fear at me. And I felt, oh my God, I'm looking at myself from without. This is bizarre. And I'm watching people look at me and interact with me from outside of me. And it was the strangest thing I'd ever been through. And I think that your book really, truly captured probably almost every emotion that everybody has felt. And I do love the personal touches of the poems about, I think you went right into not only your son, the day of your arrival, the dress.
That's my
So,
grandson. The day my grandson.
God, those were so nice to have them in there as well, because life does go on. And that was wonderful reading those too. I loved everything about it. And you are a poet. Um, Even if it was something that you had never really done before, but you wanted to. How long did this take you to do? And when did you decide this was going to be your outlet?
Well, I started writing the first poem, right after the hospital. But I'm, as you can tell by my accent, I'm English is my second language, so I was writing them in Spanish at first because I didn't feel that I was capable of doing them and English. And so I have a lot of them in Spanish. So I started collecting them. And then after my first surgery, then I decided to get a master's degree. That's when I got my master's after the first surgery. So then feeling a little more comfortable with the English language, and then I started writing in English. And the first one was to my doctor because, the year anniversary, and everybody had a celebration. My family had a celebration for me. They came home, and so I knew that I owe him my life because he had saved my life. So I wrote, that was the first one that I did in English. And then after that, then I started writing more and more and more. And then I didn't think about a book or anything. I don't remember exactly how the book came, but I had so many poems that, over the years, and every time, every crisis that I have, I realized that I could write it in a poem. So I have folders and folders, and eventually decided to put it together. And I don't remember exactly how I decided to put it in a book, but I felt that, that I could, that somebody, if I could help somebody, because somebody helped me, and I wondered, how many people are in the world that doesn't know anything about it, and how much it would help for them to read my book and then get some knowledge, and then also validating that their emotions, their emotions are real. Like, yours is real, that you looking from the outside. I was looking at myself in the mirror thinking that I was a monster, but then you were looking at how other people, like, you were invisible. I mean, that's valid too. Because really, like, people, like, I've seen how people look at your scar when you have a scar, and I see the fear in their eyes. I think one of my poems is in that book about sitting in the front pew. Oh, it is in the scar, my scar. That, people, when I sit in the front pew and how people look at my scar. And I try to cover it, but like in the summertime, it's impossible. So really, like, it becomes part of us. And I remember seeing after my second surgery, we were on a train in a kids park with my grandkids, and then seeing a little boy, maybe 5 years old, and my scar was red, and it just happened like a few months ago. And I remember that face and that little boy that, he was looking at me like he was so scared. And I wondered what's going on to his mind, is he scared that something like that will happen to him? And I feel like that is people's fear. Like, I've seen people go like, oh, like, they get chills when they see the scar, because they wonder, like, the fear that if that could happen to them.
Right.
And I mean, hopefully it will never happen to them. But that little boy stayed in my mind, and I didn't know what to say. And I mean, what do I say? He wasn't my little boy. So
Right,
I was like,
exactly. Yeah. And I think, and that maybe a lot of that was projecting. There's no way to know if he was actually scared of your scar or if there was something else, right? There's
maybe
no
he
way
was
unless you said,
creating like a whole movie or something, like a
right.
Disney movie. Who knows? But
Right, exactly. Now, is there a poem that you would like to read? Whatever you want. If you want to pick one, it's
okay,
up to you.
well, I think, let me see. Um, well, I don't know if you, I have one here about my amazing body, which is about, we're getting to the end. Are we getting to the end?
Yes.
My amazing body, because you know that, I mean, it doesn't matter what we have gone through. And I know that my book also, like, somebody told me that it caused them anxiety to read it. And I know it's going to provoke anxiety because it is part of the healing process. And you need to embrace it, because you need to embrace your anxieties, and you need to embrace your fears, and you need to embrace also the gift that you got after your surgery, especially. So this is my amazing body. My body made rivers when the blood had nowhere to go. My body created new roads when it needed to grow. My body has amazing powers. Once allowed, my body patiently rebuild inner towers. My body healed every wound when it was cut, from a tiny lesion to 13 inches. My body entirely shut. My body heals itself when I let it be. My body's healing powers build me stronger when I welcome being weak. My body shows me the path when I'm willing to listen. It guides me when in pain, if I am open to finding the blessing. My body is amazing if in it I choose to believe. My body gives me the power to push forward if I do not retrieve. My body has amazing powers if I am eager to see. My body leads me if I do not give up on the fear. My body, when I feel sad, my body can teach me how to embrace my pain. My body can direct me to accept my emotions like I greet the miracles of the rain. My body guides me when I'm open to listening with my third ear. My body can direct me to accept my emotions like I greet the miracles of the rain. I think I already read that one. My body guides me when I'm open to listening with my third ear. My third ear is a term that I use in social work, like super listening to the clients, to decode the message of its unspoken poetry. My body invites me to hear. My body has all the power to rebuild, but respect and kindness for it day by day, I will need to instill. My body knows how to mend my physical wounds, sentiments, and fears. But I will need to allow myself to be vulnerable and, and to freely flow, let my tears. When I'm anxious, my body will educate me on how to be calm. My body, with all its power, if I have faith, will provide me with its healing balm. That's the end of that.
It's so good. It's so wonderful. Gosh, and then having you read it made it even better. It's so good. I'm going to go check real quick and see if we have any comments or questions. I know this is dinner time sometimes in places. We're going to go through some comments here real quick. I think earlier you might have been talking about something that within normal limits. I think that's what we were trying to reference. Melissa had mentioned to us on the CT that's probably what the doctor said.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Within normal limits.
Stable, I think is the word.
Stable, that's another good one. That's right. It could have been that too. Okay. Oh, Linda says it's so touching to listen to. What beautiful healing thoughts.
Well, I hope that it helps somebody, all of you. That's my goal.
I think you've achieved it.
And just like I said, embrace the emotions, the anxieties, the fears, but also the gifts, because we get a lot of gifts. Like thanks to if I haven't received the gift of life that my doctor saved me in 2009, I mean, I have not seen my daughter get married. Being a grandmother, that's been the greatest gift of my life. I have 2 grandchildren now, And then now my son is getting married in August. He's my baby.
It's
Like
amazing.
getting married is like, then I feel like that will be, mission accomplished
Right.
once I see him getting married. And so everything for me is a gift, everything, even though my fears are so come and go. But
Well, and I think the fears are normal to come and go. I mean, I think unlike the average person who doesn't have a health condition or something chronic, we face mortality every day because we've experienced this, even though everybody's going to die. And there are people that have cancer or other life-threatening illnesses. We're just like one of those, which is just something that we think about when we have to have a scan or it's time to go get the EKG or the echo. It's just put in our face a little bit more. And so we think about it a little bit more often. But I think what I'm sensed from where you have grown through reading everything in your book, and again, I want to give everybody the title of this book one more time, and it's called Dissected, Healing with Poetry, My Journey of 2 Aortic Dissection Surgeries. And the link to purchase this book is on this post here on our YouTube channel. It's also on our website as well. But I think that even though we're facing this, you more times than not have come to terms with that, and you would rather spend and focus your energies on enjoying life's blessings.
Yes, and another thing is also that, like you mentioned, death. I mean, it's a fear that I always have. That's another thing that I'm still working on it. That we need to be aware. We need to embrace it because the fears of death can make things a little more difficult.
That's true.
So that, and I mean, doesn't mean that we're gonna die, and nobody wants to die. I mean, I don't want to die, but it's something that I have worked. And I think there's some poems. I have written some poems because I read a lot of poetry. And a lot of the poets that I have read are obsessed with that. So I'm working on embracing it so I don't fear it so much and it doesn't cause me more anxiety than I already have.
Right. I'm going to check to see if there's comments. Okay. Melissa comments, beautiful free verse with emotion and empathy to yourself, I think was the last line there. That's what it's called, free verse. Thank you, Melissa. I'm like, you can see my level comparing Dr. Seuss to and it's free verse. Thank you. See, so bad. So sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a professional poet, so I could not tell you the names. But I feel like if I have learned poetry, if I go to study poetry professionally, that I would not be able to write because then I'm a rules follower. So if I then that would prevent me from writing what I truly feel. So I'm just writing what I truly feel and trying to convey my feelings and my emotions and hoping that I can help somebody else.
That's wonderful. Let me check and see if there's any other comments or questions. Velda, you're very welcome. Velda says, thank you so much with a big super size heart.
Thank you.
I do want to mention to everybody your generous offer, which was about book sales.
Okay. I've been I want to donate all my the sales from this book to Aortic Hope, and really that I'm not gonna tell you that it's selling like a bestseller or anything, but anything that I can get, then I can send to donate back to Aortic Hope. And because really this book was written for you, for all of you that share that share my story, that share my pain, my anxieties, and everything that I have gone through, and hopefully it'll help you and it will help the organization and to help other people, because really, bringing awareness to other people, that is the goal of every one of us.
Well, and I will tell you that Aortic Hope will be obtaining a hard copy of your book, and we will be doing a giveaway sometime early July. So we look forward to having that because I did mine on Kindle so that I could keep going back and
Oh,
not that I couldn't, but I wanted to have it in time for this event. So
and
we're very excited to do that.
and feel free to share, the quotes, any quote that you want to, like you
Wonderful.
or because if it a
Thank
quote helps somebody, I mean, inspire somebody, then I mean that's what it is for.
Well, and what's great about it is you do not need to be an aortic dissection survivor. You could be somebody who is diagnosed with an aneurysm. You could be even a caregiver. You could have
Mhm.
some completely unrelated condition, and the emotion comes through with such ease. And it's so impactful that anybody really could read this and it's going to resonate with them, which is wonderful.
Thank you
You
so much.
did good, Maria. You did good.
Thank you.
We have some more comments here.
Oh, okay.
Very good. We have a book
Thank you.
purchaser right now tonight. That's wonderful. Thank you, Linda. And let's get our last few comments or questions in before we have to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are going to be
Thank
wrapping
you.
this up, and we're going to check to see if there's any more comments or questions before we go. But again, we have the link to the book is on the event page, which is on Facebook and on our website. We will be posting a condensed version of Maria's story for this Saturday's weekend review, which is June 4th. There'll also be a link to this YouTube video for anyone who is watching this in repeat. You'll see this weekend as well. And there'll also be the link to the book included in that posting. So yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to be part of this. And
Gosh, thank you for kicking off something that we have never tried before. I'm just so excited because every now and then we hear that somebody in the community has written a book, but you did something that's so different. So I wanted to begin this month with what you wrote. And I'm so excited that you were able to make the time to be able to do this with us. And I look forward to seeing you in the future. Maybe join a ladies' night, hang out with us and do some bingo.
I will. Yes, when I haven't been open when you have groups before. I usually have something else going, but I will be looking and see when I can join you.
I will give you ample notice. All right, final call for comments and questions. I'm sorry. All right,
Yeah.
Maria, again, thank you so much. I was just doing a triple check if we had any other comments and questions. But again, if you're watching this on repeat, please feel free to leave us a comment or a question. And don't forget to share and have other people view this video, and it might inspire them to read the book and feel a little validated with their own personal events. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. We do have some upcoming events for the month of June. It's a busy June, so check out our events page on our website and on our Facebook page. And don't forget to click like and click the bell at the bottom so that you're notified of future events. Maria, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Really
And thank you
appreciate
for
it.
all your work. Thank you for all your work and everything you do for the
So welcome.
organization and all of us. So thank
Big
you.
group effort. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, you too.
All righty.